A few years ago, I installed an Android tablet in the Jeep as a radio head unit. On paper, it seems perfect, right? Big screen, touch screen, it's got offline GPS apps, etc. It's got camera inputs for the front and rear cameras. Everything all in one package, basically. So the problem is, it's always acted up. It's never really worked right. It'll get glitchy, it'll freeze, and the worst part, sometimes it'll refuse to shut down and it'll end up draining the Jeep's battery. I've put a kill switch in there where I can actually kill the power, an actual physical disconnect. That's kind of how bad it's gotten. It's happened multiple times and it's extremely random. I'm tired of fighting this thing. Today we're going to pull it out. We're going to put the factory dash back in it, and we're going to put an actual head unit that's supposed to function like a radio. Let's get to it. Let's see. All right, nice. Quick disconnect. Pretty simple. So this is a Boss Elite BE9 ACP. Entry tier, bargain tier, but it has wireless Android Auto, which is really all I need. Multiple video inputs for the front and rear cameras. That ticked all the boxes. I looked at a couple of different brands that fit the bill the most. It was pretty affordable, and it had the proper ratings that I was looking for. So this is how the radio comes packaged. Well, it should not package, but when you take it out, it's going to be two separate units. Be your screen and your base head unit. Now the adapter kit that you get, it's going to have to be, you got to modify this to fit into here. I'll go ahead and say too that I ordered all of this from Crutchfield, USA. Yes, I know Crutchfield is more expensive than piecemealing all of this together, but it was a lot easier for me to just order everything from one place, and I went ahead and paid the extra couple dollars to have them pre-splice the harness together. I'm perfectly capable of doing this on my own. I understand how this works, and I've done many of these before, but I just didn't want to deal with it. So $10 is well worth it for me to not have to chase all that down. We've got to get this prepped to go into here. So I'll get started on that. So the old radio or head unit came with its own dash components. You had to remove your factory dash and then install this aftermarket component. And the fit and fitment was just awful. It never would stay together. It didn't quite fit right. It was always out of spec. So let's get that removed. Now, got the head unit done. Got to get this dash out. yeah. Man, that was easier than I thought it was going to be. But we got to save all these clips. And the air vents. We only have 2 ducts in the Jeep. Both of them are offensive to some degree. That's the way we like it. Oh yeah. This thing was just really cheap. Both of these sides are broken. I may have to end up ordering some more of these clips if we don't have enough. GPS antenna stays, front camera stays. It's a rear camera. And then we have OEM stuff. Let's go take a look at what we got in the new kit. This is what happens in the Southeast in the summer. The rain comes out of nowhere. Luckily I had a tarp on hand. Last thing I want is a bunch of water getting behind the dash of the Jeep. We'll see what else we can do in the garage in the meantime. Now that I got this out of the Jeep, I can kind of show you guys a lot of the issues I have with it. For starters, it's packaged like a head unit, but in reality, this is an Android tablet. Fit and finish of it is mediocre at best. There's a clip here, this one's broken off. That's a common problem across pretty much all of the components of this and the dashboard that it comes with. So after a while, that stuff starts rattling and then it doesn't fit back together. It doesn't lock in together very well. So lots of gaps, and it's just, cosmetically, it's awful. This is obviously a very cheap overseas alternative to something like an Alpine. And you get what you pay for in that scenario. It doesn't have Android Auto. It doesn't have the concept of like Apple, CarPlay, any of that stuff. But it did have, which is what was the most appealing to me, is multiple video inputs. Like I can run up to 4 cameras on this thing, which is pretty cool. I never expanded it beyond the front and rear cameras because I really just didn't have a need. That being said, the new head unit that we're switching to only has a front and rear input. So I'm losing some functionality, but I don't think that's a deal breaker. And realistically, it's not functionality that I use. So we'll just forgo that and deal with it if we want to change our mind down the road. The biggest issue I had with this, though, aside from fit and finish and functionality, was the fact that because it's an Android tablet and not an actual radio or a car head unit, stereo head unit, it'll hang sometimes when it shuts down. So you can turn the ignition off in the key and the screen would go blank, but the buttons would stay illuminated and they would not shut off. This would drain the battery after 2 or 3 days, which is not good at all. It'll just sit there dead. If it was a daily driver, maybe that's a different story because this thing gets reset, but realistically, when it gets in that hung state, even when you turn the ignition on and you crank it back up, it doesn't power cycle and reset itself. It'll just stay in that hung state, and you have to push this reset button or kill the power. I wired in a toggle switch that would kill the power to this thing. That being said, I'm tired of dealing with it. Hopefully we're going to get an upgrade. It's a new day. As I was reassembling the dash to get this radio install finalized, I realized that I ran out of clips, or I'd lost so many that the dash was not going to snap back together right. So had to order some clips. They showed up today. We're going to try and get that finished tonight. But while I was waiting in the rain and without my clips, a thought occurred to me. I have this head unit, this cubby, that I'm never going to use. It's going to be hidden behind the touch screen. I'm never going to see it, and it'll be pretty much useless unless I want to like hide a remote or something like that. So I'll never use it. I also have a Midland MicroMobile MXT275. It's a really small unit. The handheld portion is what actually has the display on it. I never liked where I mounted this. It's, if you have your center console down to the right at an angle, it's out of the way for me. It's not out of the way for my passenger princess. I really, really wanted to do a cleaner install on it. I have an opportunity here to do a much cleaner install for this radio while I'm replacing the new one. So we're going to take this new head unit cubby, this Midland radio, and see if we can make a baby. The idea is pretty simple. Clearly this is already too tight of a fit. You can see it bowing down here at the bottom. It's not going to let the radio breathe. It's going to overheat. I've got a remote speaker, by the way, so I don't care about the speaker on the unit. I've got one mounted back behind me. I think we could make this work, and I think we could make it really clean if we just clearance some things just a little bit. Kind of taped up the bottom and sketched out what I'm thinking. So realistically, we're actually going to use this mount again. I'm going to try and leave this front bezel intact, trim out this, and then trim out the back for the wiring. We've got enough space. It's a few millimeters, but that's really all we need. I think this is going to work. I'm going to take some more measurements, and we're going to endeavor to make this perfect. Stay tuned. We still want to use the bracket that the radio came with. So that adds a little bit of space, 3/8 of an inch. When I mount this in here, I want the front of this just behind the bezel right here. So that means we need to align it to some degree and use this flat edge like so. Kind of sets our depth. Just barely got enough, so we're gonna have to take this back out. The other thing we need to do is center this up to some degree. 1 and 5/16, 1 and 5/16. All right, this is good enough for me. We're gonna trace our outline here. Okay. Replacement clips are here. Let's get that taken care of. So there's 1, 2, 3 wide ones, one skinny one that'll match up with these grooves. That keeps your Jeep logo upright. Pop it in, twist to lock, done. Oh, well, it might help if I put the radio in first, huh? We got our microphone mounted up here. Wire runs down the top, down the pillar, behind the dash, follows this GPS wire, comes out. We've got our excess dealt with, electrical tape here. Got our GPS antenna hooked up. We've got our rear camera input hooked, front camera input hooked. But the rear needs power. So I need to go check my pin out in the instructions, see which one of these has power, and splice into that. We're looking for rear camera power supply, which is a red and white wire in position 10, which will be on one of the corners. So they did give us bullet connectors, which is awesome. Good on them for that. Looks good. All right. Moment of truth. Now let's see if the radio comes on. Yep. So I've got my Midlands up here. Goes off. And then I went ahead and wired this in to the other switch. I gotta change the sticker, don't judge me. So the radio goes off. That way I can manually shut it off, and then for the switch pod, if for some reason it stays on or gets hung on, this can kill it. Has a low battery safety feature. Steering wheel controls still work. All right, Android Auto is working. Let's check our cameras. Front camera works. Rear camera works. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So what started as a simple radio replacement turned into a little more than what I was expecting it to be. Took an extra day to do because we had to order the clips. But the old Android head unit's gone. We have a new head unit in and a better mounting location for the Midland MicroMobile. The interior's cleaner. Everything's working how it should now. Hopefully I'm not going to be chasing any more dead batteries due to a head unit staying on. All of that to say, more often than not, plans change, but most of the time it's for the better. Thanks for watching, and as always, get dirty and explore.